Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Dana, and this topic might get me in a little bit of hot water. So before we get into it, I just want to make a quick disclaimer that I'm not hating on any of the people mentioned in the video. I'm just using them as examples because they are the most popular artists that I follow and I've recognized who do this all the time, and basically they're just examples, honestly. So let's get into this video, and what am I talking about? I am talking about art subscription boxes, and I am going to make a very big statement, and then I'm going to use the rest of this like 15 to 20 minute video talking about it. So the statement is, art subscription boxes have ruined art YouTube. So I'm going to be talking from a perspective of somebody who's been watching art YouTubers for a while, and especially before this whole unboxing subscription thing has gotten very, very popular for content. So I've been a child on the internet for at least like 5 to 7 years, I believe. And I've always followed artists on YouTube, especially on YouTube, because number one, I was trying to learn how to draw. And number two, I just find it really entertaining and fascinating to see other people create and like see what other people's process and mindsets are and products and so on and so forth. And back when I was around probably like 11 or 12, kind of around that age, I saw next to no unboxing type of videos because it just wasn't really a thing. It might have been a thing for like other genres of YouTube, but for art YouTube it just hadn't come yet. And so the closest thing you would get to those were product reviews, and that's pretty much what subscription boxes have turned into nowadays. But I feel like subscription boxes are very different from product reviews, and I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, product reviews were the closest you can get, and they weren't, I'm gonna say obnoxious. They weren't as obnoxious as subscription boxes have become nowadays. So I'm gonna talk personally because I mean all of this is my opinion and just how I feel about it, but I've always been a person who enjoys the art content for the art, for what you're creating, and it's never really been about the product for me. If I wanted to find a product review, I mean, it would be great if one of my favorite YouTubers reviewed a product I was looking into, but I will literally pick like the first search on YouTube and keep it moving because I'm there for the product. I'm not really there for your personality. And when it comes to product reviews or unboxings, I feel like a lot of the time the personality and the art comes second and the product and the supplies come first, which is a big problem for me. My favorite type of art videos are topic art videos, mainly when, you know, you can have videos kind of like what I do, where you have the art playing in the background and then somebody's doing a voiceover talking about it, or somebody's talking about their process as they draw. So like as they work on it, it's in real time and you get to see their thought process and what they're thinking of while they work on the piece. Or when people just talk about their process and while the process is like in a time lapse, mainly when people talk about specifically the art, because again, that's what I'm there for. That's why I love sketchbook tours, because you can really see inside like what somebody's really thinking, kind of like what their thought process is, mainly when they're like doing pictures and doing art. And I also like those videos, like real-time videos, where I get to see people's process in motion and I get to see them make mistakes and how they recover from those mistakes, how they use certain supplies up. And like that's what I like as a consumer of art media on YouTube. Now recently there's been a very huge boom in like unboxing videos, and I remember when they first came out and it was actually really cool, and I've always speculated getting my own. So when I'd watch these videos, I'd be like, oh, that's a really cool product. And it didn't even have to be a quote-unquote cool or superficial product. It just had to be a product that I never heard of or I have never really seen in action before, and I'd be intrigued and I continue watching. And when they were first coming out, it was really cool because I still got to see somebody create art like I love, like with an idea and a theme and a topic, but I also got to see them usually use a new medium that they usually don't use. So if they were like a digital artist usually, then I get to see them do traditional art and what that process would be like. Or if they're usually like an artist who works in watercolor, I get to see how their style would translate into acrylic, and it would be a really, really cool thing. But at the end of the day, the artistry was not lost. It was mainly about, oh, this is just a new medium that I'm using and it happened to come in an art subscription box, rather than these are the products and these are the pecs, and it's more about the product than the art. And that's kind of what art subscription boxes have encouraged, for it to more be about the product than the actual art. So like I said in the beginning, art subscription boxes weren't very problematic. They were mainly just introducing artists to like new mediums in a very easy, accessible way. You have everything in a little box, you don't know what comes, so there's an element of surprise, and it's a really good idea. But what it has morphed into, it's basically turned into product reviews for superficial products, and that's mainly where my issues lie. So obviously, there's always a ton of different art subscription boxes, but the main ones that I really will be focusing on is Art Snacks, Scrawler Box, and what's the other one? Palettefull Packs. There we go. And obviously these companies, they send legitimate products a lot of the time, especially if you get like their premium boxes. You get very good quality paint, very good quality mediums. But what I've noticed, and I think it's mainly with Scrawler Box and Art Snacks, is that sometimes they'll send things that aren't normal art supplies, or they're just not, they're very gimmicky art supplies. Like if you guys remember the box where like the main product was highlighters, I would be ticked off if that came in my box and I paid that much money for it. Or that one, I think it was a Art Snacks box where you got like those Faber-Castell gelatos where they kind of look like lipsticks and they were really hard to use, and I don't really know a lot of artists who had like a fun time with those. Like I feel like some of the times the art supplies that come in the box are more gimmicky than usable, and obviously there are only so many art supplies. Like what do you have? You have pencils, pens, paint, and there's only so many ways they can come in, you know, like marker, spray paint, etc. But at the same time, if I'm paying that much for an art subscription box, then I do want quality things that I can use for like a long time. And that comes to like my second point. Since a lot of these products are very gimmicky and hard to use, and they're like for very, very specific purposes, a lot of artists just end up with a lot of product they're just not gonna use. Like, tell me an artist that used those little Faber-Castell gelatos after like the subscription box, or tell me like the artist who used that highlighter box more than like just for that video, or used them more than just adding a little bit of color in their sketchbooks. Like, you have a bunch of supplies sent to these artists just wasting away, and it's like very wasteful in my opinion. I like the artists that end up giving away some of the products, because I feel like that's good to send it to people who might not have that opportunity to have such things. But a lot of the people that review these boxes are people who just get them sent to them for free, which is obviously not their fault, but at the same time it builds up and you just have a bunch of supplies that you're never going to use. Like, I understand having cheap supplies that you don't use all the time, because that makes sense. They're cheap, they're easy to get. But when you have very expensive paints just wasting away, like, that bothers me a lot, especially when they get all of these like alcohol-based markers. And obviously, like, most of these young artists will give their right arm to get like 3 Copic markers, and you have like 7,000 sitting in your room just wasting away while you just use the same 3 products, which, like, I get it, there's no way you can use all of those products, which is why I don't like art subscription boxes, because they literally just junk up your room when you know you will probably never use most of those supplies like ever again. On to my third point, which is the main thing that made me think about making this video, was that the videos of our YouTube start becoming about the superficial product rather than the art. And I feel like I know I'm not the only person who has noticed that when it's an art subscription video the art, like the quality of the art, goes down. Obviously, I know that not every single piece is going to be the best. I'm an artist myself, and it's been a while since I felt like a piece was my best. I usually don't ever have that feeling, but that's because it just wasn't there that day. The concept wasn't there. It wasn't because I was using a whole new product. And I feel like a lot of the times the videos are more about figuring out how to use a bizarre product that no one would usually use like as the main art supply, rather than making and talking about good art. Like, I don't know how many art subscription box videos that I've seen where people are working with watercolor pens, like, oh, they're water-based markers, let's see how I can use it. You use it the same way you've used it for the past like 6 months you've been getting these boxes. Or it's like, oh, well, you know, I really don't like watercolor pencils, but the box sent it to me and I'm sponsored by them, so I have to use them again. It just feels like a lot of the time it's very superficial. Like, the art is, you have to work around the product half the time. Like, you can't even use most of these products for a full piece. Like, you give somebody like 5 pens and then an art pad by 9 by 12 and say, go make something. Like, that's not, like, obviously you can, but it's just not, it's not compatible. Like, it makes the process 100 times harder when I'm forced to use a 0.5 millimeter pen to fill in a 9 by 12 space. Like, you start working around the products, which makes the quality of the art go down significantly. And it's not, the thing is, the reason why I take issue with this is it's because I know a lot of these artists are talented. I know these artists can make a setting, can do an interesting pose, can do a great concept if you give them time. If every other video is an art subscription box video, the process is stifled. Like, the creativity is stifled. And maybe obviously new products could spark new ideas you maybe might have not thought about, but when you are limited to only using those supplies, and the only supplies you usually use outside that is like a pencil or a white gel pen, it still limits your creativity. Maybe not the creativity, but the execution of the piece. Like, if somebody gave me the program Procreate but said, oh no, you can't use these brushes, you can only use 5 brushes, maybe I would have a great idea when I have the grid brush, but obviously I will not be able to execute it that well when I'm only given that and like a luminance brush. Like, if that makes sense. Like, imagine going into a digital art space and you're limited by what you can use. Obviously they already have that, like paywalls, but usually they give you enough brushes where you can actually make something rather than giving you very bizarre brushes. Like, imagine if somebody just gave me a hair pack and said create something beautiful with the theme word flowers. Like, how am I gonna do that? How am I gonna do that? And I feel like that's a lot of the time what these art subscription boxes do. And like, recently they haven't even been really giving art supplies, they've been giving like craft supplies. Like, all of a sudden you'll have envelopes or like stickers, and I'm just confused because the original premise of this idea was that you use art subscription boxes to introduce artists to new mediums in a very fast and efficient way, so artists don't have to do all this research, gather the materials. You just send me a box with everything. Great idea. But now it's devolved into, what can I make out of these very limiting products? And they're not enjoyable videos to watch. Like, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or if this is just me, but I don't really like to see artists fight with their supplies. I don't like to see artists struggle with the supplies when they have a good idea. It's like the equivalent of making a bomb sketch and then using the wrong medium to execute. Like, that's painful. Like, I don't want to watch somebody else go through that, let alone myself go through that. So personally, like, art subscription boxes are not really enjoyable to me. And the last thing that I want to talk about with these boxes is the sheer volume of videos on these boxes. Half of the time the supplies are really not that interesting. It's like, oh cool, another alcohol marker set to try, even though it's probably not going to measure up to Copic and no hoo-hoo, but I have to act like it because I'm sponsored. Or, oh cool, it's paint pens. Even though we went through our whole Posca pen phase, let's just do it again and see if it measures up, which it probably won't. Like, and honestly, if these videos were like 1 to 2 months like spaced, I wouldn't really care that much. But I feel like from a lot of the artists that I follow, they're very common. Like, they're their own playlist. Like, they're their own subset of videos. Like, if you're a YouTuber usually and you're pretty well established, you know, you have series established, so you know, you have your draw with me's, which is like your real time, and then you have your time lapse videos, and then you have your topic videos, and then you have your art subscription boxes. Like, they have their own category because there are so many of them. And I think I recorded how many there were from some of my, well, two of my favorite artists. So let me pull that up. So one of my favorite artists on this website, and she always has been, is Miss Rin from Drawing with Waffles. I've always loved her style. She's very bubbly and outgoing, and I've always enjoyed seeing her process. But she is notorious for having so many art subscription boxes. So I went through her 2019 videos because 2020 isn't finished yet, and I grouped her videos into 3 categories. So I had the art subscription box category, product reviews category, and regular art videos. And when I mean regular art videos, basically what I really mean is anything that is not an art subscription box or product review. So if she was trying out a new medium, just trying it out, no box attached, no product, no specific product attached, then I just counted it as a regular art video. But if it did have a subscription box, I put it in its own category. And if it was a product review, I obviously grouped it. So for regular art videos, she had 60 regular art videos in 2019. In 2019, she had 41 art subscription boxes videos, and then she had 3 product reviews. And that's a large majority. Like, even though the art subscription number isn't the majority, it's a very significant number of videos. Here's a pie chart because I'm extra, but if you can see it, the red is the art subscription boxes. And again, like I said, even though it's not the majority, it's still a lot. Like, if we think about it, these art subscription boxes, usually they're monthly, right? So at minimum, if she releases like 1 a month, that would only be 12 videos, which, I mean, it's not really a big deal. Like, if they only release like 12 videos a year, I wouldn't really care. I'd just skip that upload because that is something I can do. But when like half of your content is art subscription boxes, it gets very repetitive and they're very tiring to watch because you have to go through the whole this is this product and let's swatch it. And like, if you get, so God help me, if you get a watercolor palette, like, it's gonna take forever, and then you have to test you just have to do a lot of testing and swatching and like trying to figure out the product before you can even work on the idea that you were originally trying to execute, which it's not fun to watch. Usually I try to skip through it. I appreciate those who just regularly like just lay it out like very quickly, like summarize it, like they just show a picture and they're like, okay, moving on, because I'm here for the art, I'm not here for the swatches. If I wanted to know how this product worked, I would go for a product review, not an art subscription box where it's probably not going to get a fair shake. So I went on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah. So if it's like 1 art subscription, that would probably be 12 videos a year. Not a big deal. I could skip that content. But most of these people have like multiple art subscription boxes, and like we've already mentioned, there are only so many different art supplies to where they're usable, and then it starts getting ridiculous and superficial. And when you have 3 to 4 art subscription boxes, it gets really repetitive and really tiring very, very fast. And that's when you see people taking on subscription boxes that don't even really deal with art. Like, an exception to the rule for me personally would be Tokyo Treat, because it doesn't limit you in the products you can use. You can use it as inspiration, which a lot of people say is the point of these art subscription boxes, but I've obviously noticed that even if you have inspiration from the products, it's going to be stifled and is probably going to be poorly executed because of the limited amount of supplies. But when you have an art subscription box that, you know, you got sponsored, but it also inspires new art, I really like that. That's what Casey Golden does for her Tokyo treat. And even though every single piece is not like amazing, she does quantity over quality, which is really nice. Like, it's not always about the quality, especially if you have something to even it out, which Casey does. She has nice commentary, and her art, like her character designs, are always very, very interesting, and she has a great variety of how she designs her characters. So even though it's not her best work, it's still entertaining to watch. If I got a box that, sure, it gave me inspiration, but it doesn't really matter because I can't execute it, that's not a very enjoyable video to watch. It's not very satisfying to watch, and I'm going to get frustrated with you rather than being entertained, which is the main point of these videos. I didn't expect to break the 20-minute mark on this topic, but apparently I had a lot to say. So I'm just going to summarize my points very quickly. So my first point about art subscription boxes is that they're wasteful. They give you way too much product that you're probably never going to use, and maybe you'll use it for that video, but after that I rarely see people use those supplies as a main supply. The second point that I want to make is that when we're using art subscription boxes, the video starts turning into talking about the product, like a so-so product, rather than the actual art. And personally, that is what I'm there for. So the art and the creativity is stifled because you're trying to work around the product. The last point that I want to make is that there are just way too many videos about them. They're overly saturated, and they're not even that interesting enough to have more than like 20 videos on, and they just don't do it for me. Like, they don't. And I feel like they've done more cons than like good things in the art community. The only thing they've done is really introduce people to more products, and more products doesn't necessarily mean good products. And especially when you have such a large audience and you're showing these, and you're obviously sponsored, and I know people always say, oh, well, even though I'm sponsored, I wasn't paid, and these are all my true feelings. But no matter what, if someone's sponsoring you, you're obviously going to feel more pressure to give a better review. Like, if somebody gave you markers, you're just not gonna say, oh yeah, these suck. Like, no one's going to say that. Like, almost no one is going to say that. Maybe Holly Brown, but other than her, like, no one is going to say that. And so when you have such a massive influence and most of your fan base is like 10 to 12-year-olds, I just think it's a little irresponsible to be marketing something to an audience that trusts you when it's not as great as you're advertising it to be. So thank you for watching this video. I really want to hear you guys' opinion on art subscription boxes. I know when I took a poll on my Instagram, a lot of people didn't really see an issue with it, or they didn't really have strong opinions about it. But if you have your own strong opinion, whether it's they've done great things for the art community or they haven't done such great things for the art community, please let me know in the comments, or you can DM me on my Instagram. If you want to see this final piece, you can find it on my Instagram. And if you want to buy any of my art on any product under the sun, you can visit my Redbubble, and there is a link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.